And we are live. Yes, we are. We're live. Let's see how many people we do have online. First, I think the advert must be playing, but we are live. That's the most important thing. So, have your say in the comments and get into the Celtic news this afternoon, which, let's face it, isn't too good. Let's just make sure that sounds okay. And yeah, we are live. Right. Skip the ads and let's get on with it. It's where do we start? Where do we start this afternoon? The Celtic news is obviously the players have been dropping like flies. I've just watched the Brendan Rodgers interview, and I've just watched the big one from Joe Hart. And we'll talk about Joe Hart first of all. Joe Hart's obviously been talking about the fact that he wants to get back to putting in a performance. He wants to get back to doing what Celtic do best, and that's winning. And it was interesting to say that they've been training hard this week. He says we're not really thinking about the defeat to Kilmarnock now. He says it's over, it's done. He says it's really difficult, but with all the noise that's going about, we've got to cancel out the noise. He said, and he said we've got to go on and win. He said nevertheless, he says he respects the noise that's around the club. He respects what the fans are saying online. But Celtic have got high standards and they need to get back to the high standards that they have. Speaking on Celtic TV this afternoon, he was speaking before the St Johnstone game this weekend. He says, I try not to react in this game. It's a long season, and with many games, we just try to stay consistent as possible. And that's what we've tried this week, is to do our best back in training. We've got a home game, which is big for us. He says, we look forward to the St Johnstone's game. You've got to respect the noise when you're at a club like Celtic. He said, you'd be disappointed if there wasn't any noise. We would be disappointed, but that is the levels that we expect. We expect Celtic to produce week in, week out at the highest possible level. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's get some of the comments in first. And obviously, let's see who's in the house. Tam Mack's in the house. Perfect. Afternoon, Baz. Ewan Boy is in the house. Anthony's in the house. Graham Hardy's in the house. Let's get them up on screen. CCV out for 2 months. Bad news. That's devastating news. But the Celtic manager has said that we're going back into the transfer market. Right, which is good. I agree through the breaks, however, we get new guys in. Yes, paramount. Absolutely paramount. Paul Burrell says, hail, hail from Glasgow. Hail from Greenwich. Get a thumbs up, guys. No control English part the self man. Dear, there's a Spaniard in the house. Right, even moving on. Hail, hail, troops. No panic. No panic. Yeah, John, that's probably what I would say as well. No panic. No panic is needed just yet. We have still got this week in the transfer window. The manager did say, let's talk about what the manager said, right? He said it's obviously disappointed that Cameron Carter-Vickers and Nawrocki are out for 8 weeks. Rio Hatate will be back in the international break. One person he never spoke about, right? One person that he never spoke about during the press conference was Marco. Where is Marco? Are we ever going to see this Australian? And is he ever going to kick a ball for Celtic? He never spoke about him if he's back in training. He obviously spoke about Alistair Johnston's back in training, and he will be in the team, in the squad definitely for the game this weekend. I think it was the fact that the way that we rushed back Cameron Carter-Vickers has kind of went against us. And he was also talking about Rio Hatate and the contract talks. Now, he said, look, these contract talks have been going on since before he got here, but he is ruled out for the game on the 3rd of September. We do need that bit of bite in midfield. The fact that we're missing 3 of those players for that game, and also with Stephen Welsh would have fitted right into that team, is disappointing. We do have Mikey Johnston back, however. Alistair Johnston comes back, and Mikey Johnston will be back and ready for next week. You just can't get excited about Mikey Johnston come back, though, can you? Although he's a player that's kind of had his chances at Celtic. He went out on loan last year, and he done okay last year out on loan. But let's face it, he's not quite hit the heights that we thought he might have at Celtic. Right, let's get back to some of the comments before we go on to some more Celtic news this evening. And afternoon, Baz. Looking forward to the there is no old. It's the Glasgow Derby. The Glasgow Derby. So you'll never get me saying that word. So good luck saying that. Get Grant Hanley in, good up and coming Scottish centre back. Time for my man Scales to shine. Yes, it is, Borders boy. It is time for Scales to shine. Just need 3 players, include a goalkeeper before the cards next Friday. It's still this need to get Benji Siegrist out of the club for me is a bit disappointing. I spoke about it in the Smarlands video. If you've not checked out the Smarlands video, check it out after this live, because I do talk about the 6 players that have been linked with us so far, going into the end of the window. He did talk about Kieran Tierney. We'll talk about the transfers in a minute. Let's get people's up first. Borders Boy says, yeah, Scales needs to shine. Maik says, just need 3 players in. Goalkeeper. He'll Baz. We need experienced cover. Remember, Rodgers done it the first time with Tory, yep, hail from the Gallagher. No panic, lol. More injuries will have to play out the ladies' team. Probably not a bad thing playing out the ladies' team. Don't know if any players getting mentioned, but transfer window closed. Yeah, I'll be glad when the transfer window's closed so we can get back to football. Anyway, right, not always easy to remember all the players in the squad, especially at that time. Hardly any treatment table. Yep, I'm really worried about going into the zombie game. And this is 100% Hun free. Get your t-shirts at hoopsmerch.com. Don't be too worried about it. I wouldn't be too worried about it just yet. I think we're going to go into this weekend's game, and it's paramount. If you look at the table, right? I'm not going to get the table up because it does all sorts of nonsense with the lives. We're sitting on 6 points. We're top of the league. We're looking down on the Rangers, right? We're top of the league, looking down on the Rangers still. Rangers are in 6th position. They're away to Ross County this weekend. We play St Johnstone, who are the bottom of the table, who have a -4 goal difference. They've played 2 games. They've lost 2 games, 2-0. And have they? Yeah, they've lost. Well, they've lost. They've had 4 goals shipped past them. Yeah, they've lost 2-0 both games, and they're sitting bottom of the table. If we cannot put on a performance at home this weekend, there's something seriously wrong with the club. And I think the fact that everyone's got their head down in training this week is really, really what we needed. We can. It's like Brendan says. Look, it's unfortunate that these players are out. They would have been in the team for sure. They would have been in the team. They would have been starting this weekend. I think we'll go out and put a good performance in. And being back at home, it was always difficult when you had a cup game. You had an away game and then a cup game. You know, it's always a bit difficult. Why is the internet showing connection is unstable? Why is it doing that? Just checking the CCV is out for 8 weeks. All right, Baz says, sound Alex, love it, says, why is CCV out for 8 weeks and he's supposed to have been out for 2 weeks? Love it. It's because it's a hamstring injury, and, you know, hamstring, he went for more scans, and we're lucky he's only out for 8 weeks with a hamstring. So, and the fact that Rocky pulled up, imagine pulling up with 10 seconds to go in the game. You know, Rocky pulls up with 10 seconds to go in the game, and he pulls up with a hamstring injury. Talk about unlucky or what? I mean, what did he do? Was he getting ready to run off the pitch? The fact that this was going to be our centre. Looks like the players that fitted Angeball don't look. Stop talking about Angeball, because it's done and dusted. We're on a new season. You know, we need to sort of. He's gone. Ange couldn't wait to run out the door. Right, so let's forget him. He's in the past, Ange, right? He couldn't wait to run out the door. He had the contract laid in front of him. You're going to get me on a rant. Ange had the contract laid in front of him. He had it offered to him way before the end of the season. He played Celtic a blinder, told them, let's get the cup final at the roads. All known, and then having the hard neck to tell our owner and our CEO before a ball was kicked at the cup final that he wanted to look at the Spurs option. He told them before the game. So let's leave that man in the past. Anyway, we move on. Right. We need to send a leprechaun. Our luck is going with injury. Yes, exactly, Guitar Man. Ange who? That is the rant over. Rocky pulling up with so many passbacks from Ralston and Taylor. Well, the exact same passbacks happened under Himble. Anyway, afternoon from Hampshire. Right, let's get back to some Celtic news. Obviously, the manager was deeply disappointed in that press conference this afternoon. I'm sure you've all watched it. The fact that we've got these players out injured, missing Carter-Vickers and Big Rocky for 8 weeks. Hatate coming back. He spoke about players that were coming back during. I mean, let's get the 3rd of September game out the way. At the worst, they're going to be level with points on us. At the worst. I think Ross County might do us a trick this weekend. Because Ross County know, right? Ross County know. If Ross County beat Rangers, they go above Rangers in the league, right? If they win against Rangers, they go above Rangers in the league. It's a big shout for Malky Mackay and Ross County. It's a massive shout. Massive weekend for them. They know that they have to come out and do something this weekend. Anyway, let's not talk about them. Michael Moles tried to avoid standing on a player and get a knee injury. Never recovered. Yes. Right. The manager was also asked about the Lewis Palmer Celtic transfer link that we spoke about this morning. Rodgers admitted there lots of names floated about. He said, but I'm not going to talk about them until we've signed, sealed and delivered. And we put out their name that in fact we have signed them. He was also quizzed on Kieran Tierney as a realistic move to Celtic. And he says that all he'll do is he'll talk about Kieran when he was here and watched with him before. He didn't want to get drawn in the possibility of Kieran Tierney making a sensational return to Celtic, but he needs to be playing games, Kieran, and I think it's all going to come down to money. Whether Celtic can get him or not is the good thing. Is that the Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers sat today and was asked about if Mikey Johnson sell him now. Yes, exactly, Chilpel. If Mikey Johnson is fit, sell him for a couple of $100,000 to get him out the door. He was asked about players that were coming in. He was asked about players going out. And he said, look, there's been a lot of names mentioned. And they're all 100% hun-free. You can get it at hoopsmerch.com. He said there was a lot of players mentioned and he didn't want to talk about them. It looks like Brendan wants a goalkeeper. Yes, it does look like he wants a goalkeeper, but the talk is from Celtic, the fact that they want to get a keeper out the door first. We can't have 4 first-team goalkeepers. And the one that they're going to try and get out the door, unfortunately, is Benjamin Siegrist. So what is it that he doesn't fancy about Benji? Which is, you're not going to get rid of Scott Bain because we've just given him a 3-year contract. The only reason that we've given him that contract is purely for the fact that he adds up to the Scottish contingent for European football. Give Mikey one last shot. The side of a fence at the moment. You're on the side of the fence with regards to Mikey could get it. We've got so many wingers, and he wants to bring in. Mikey's not done it at the highest level for us, unfortunately. And I think the manager did say, he was asked, you're going to be, yeah, Graham, Benji is a class keeper. And I honestly thought that Scott Bain would be out the door this summer. Benji would move into the number 2 position, and then we could bring another keeper in. It doesn't look like we're going to spend any kind of serious money on the goalkeeping position, which is disappointing for our point of view. We all thought that we would go out and spend $8 million on a keeper with the chance, and we didn't. We didn't even put in an offer, which was really disheartening from the club. But we do move on. So Brendan Rodgers wants defensive reinforcements. He confirmed at the press conference this afternoon. He wants in experienced players, and when you look at the 3 that are out, I mean, that would have been, well, if you look at the 2 that's out, well, because Welsh is out as well. So you look at the 3, I mean, they're all good on their own right. Hatate being out until the international break. Brendan Rodgers is searching for a new centre-back after Cameron Carter-Vickers and Rocky were ruled out for 8 weeks, which was disappointing for us because that takes us right into the middle of the Champions League games. So much for going into the Champions League and trying to make an impact. All the talk that was about last season, trying to make an impact and trying to qualify for third, because I'm even thinking now it's going to be a struggle to even qualify for third with this group of players. Depends. Here comes Johnny. Here comes Johnny. Yep, we're not playing techno tunes tonight. Bring KT home, says Paul Burrell. He did say that the Celtic manager did say that he wants to bring in experienced players. You know, we've brought in a certain amount of players that can be improved. He wants to now go out and bring in some experienced players that are slightly older, purely for the fact that you need to have that balance in the team. You need to have a balance of younger players with the enthusiasm and the run that they can go for the 90 minutes and more. But Brendan says they were hopeful. They were hopeful that it would have been back sooner, but further scans probably put them at the 8-week mark. So they were hoping that they would probably get back for the Champions League. It doesn't look like they're going to now. They then need to get match fit. You know, we don't even know the Champions League draw yet, and we're worried about it. Yes, that is true. Barry, got Evans. Anyway, Merlin and Brent Carter and that talkers that just talked. There's been a lot of speculation. I think that, Lovett says, sorry, looking for bargain basement players at the end of the window is truly shocking by the board. I don't think it's basement bargain players. I think it's the fact that it's players that fit what Celtic needed. And to be fair, we brought in far too many players that were project players again. We didn't need to this season. This summer wasn't about bringing in Haksabanovic wants to move, he's unhappy. Well, to be fair, I'm glad that Haksabanovic wants to move because he's done nothing, absolutely nothing at Celtic. When he comes on as a sub, he maybe has a good 20 minutes. When he gets his chance of a full game, he ends up getting substituted off because he's not good enough. Whatever it is with him, whatever he thinks, however good he thinks he is, for me, he's not doing it. And for the Celtic, he's not doing it. He's not doing it, and that's it. If he's not happy that he's not getting a game, go. Anyway, right. Hi, mate, says Martin. Haksabanovic showed promise last season, said Sound. He doesn't seem to be anywhere near it. We do seem to be going for a lot of wingers, and that's a bit of a worrying thing. But the fact is now Brendan has come out and says, look, we are going to be looking for experience. I think we have to look at it. There's no doubt, he said, it's an area that we are now light on. This is true. This is when he was asked about reinforcements in defence. Rodgers said, I think we'll have to have a look at it. There's no doubt that we are light in that area. Brendan, that's light. When you're losing players for that length of time and knowing it's a numbers game and how important every game is, we definitely have to look at it. Going into the Champions League now is a big, big worry for me. Just a quick message. My spanner. Yes, if there's anyone out, right, who else is on Fighting Irish? You'll do it. Fighting Irish, you are now gatekeeper. Lanky's in the house. Lanky's in the house. So, wait a minute, I'm trying to catch up with comments here. Right, anyway, it doesn't matter who we get the Champions League. It's going to be tough. Yes, it is, Michael. It's going to be more than tough. It's going to be unbelievable. David says, hail, mate. Bring Ramos. Celtic could get behind signing. Hail. Baz Joseph says, I feel we're back to the old days with last minute. But still going to... Yeah. KT is needed. It's all about the end of the window stuff. We need to remember when selling Jota, CCV, and JJ all signed towards the end of the window. Yes, the only 3 of Ange's signings were signed early. Matt O'Reilly and Hart was late. Also, this is true. And they were also 100% free. Anyway, let's move on. Right, there's 228 people online. Let's see how many thumbs up there is. Tam Mac, someone dropped a spanner on Lanky's head. There's only 49 thumbs up. Make sure you give the thumbs up and share it on Twitter if you are on Twitter. Too many Chiefs and all wrong parts of the kitchen at Celtic. Still time to bring Kieran Tierney in. He said he wants a keeper, a left back, and a left winger, and a possible striker. And he's not really. He also says that he's wanting in wingers. He's wanting in quality. Surely the priority is a number 6, given blatant clear Calmack is not Scott Brown. This system under Brendan. I think the fact that we've got Hatate out, I think he's going to go with the fact that, Rio will be back and he's not getting sold. Rio will be back and we will run with him in the Champions League. It's a big, big season for Rio. Massive season for him. Brendan Rodgers says, paraphrased, centre-back is a specialist area. They need to be experienced and quality. He did say that. Feels like the window's gone on forever, Baz, says Harry. It does. It feels like this is one of the longest windows ever. I mean, the transfer talk started in June before the window had even opened, and it went on and on, and we're all still underwhelmed. We're still, I mean, the poll last night, are the board sleeping through this transfer window, and it was about 86%. Brown and Carlton Awata, good partnership. Double pivot. Instead of bringing in a $4 million left back plus wages, why not pay KT wages for 2 years until his contract out at Arsenal and get him on a free? Arsenal want to sell him. They now want to sell him. They've now valued him at 25 million, what they paid us for him. The fact that valuation went away down now. That valuation would be away down. The fact that he's not in the team. And you've got to remember, there was one time Kieran Tierney was valued at 35 million and he was going to be going to Man City or something. No, there was even talking about him going to Real Madrid, but that's not obviously going to happen now. What was a Japanese player of the year last season, whole midfield player. The boy has had enough game time to prove himself. Yes, he's not had enough game time to prove himself. There's a lot of players haven't. Where is Marco? Tell us where Marco is. Marco wasn't even mentioned today at the press conference by Brendan. KT isn't coming, for God's sake. Yes, says Martin. I'm not overwhelmed or underwhelmed. Living the moment, says CB1000. Yes, we do. We just need to, it's like Brendan says. I mean, but you could see when you looked at Brendan's face in the press conference today, he did look a bit, do you know what? This could have been so much easier for me. So much easier, but it's not. We have to deal with it. It's unfortunate that these players are out. But we just need to get on with it. We do just need to get on with it, and that is it. But he did say, Hansel Connor Goldston, the 50 million defender. Connor Goldston's we're not even going to talk about them. Marco back in training early September. Apparently, Marco does like a tea take. Oh my goodness! Right. What other Celtic news is going about this afternoon? Obviously, it is all about the fact that Celtic will be forced into the transfer market again after they're back to. We've been ruled out for 8 weeks. The scans that they had on them, they did think it was going to be a couple of weeks for Cameron Carter-Vickers, and for Rocky, but they've both had hamstring issues. The one with Cameron Vickers, that all comes down to game time, and he didn't get enough game time during the pre-season. And it's probably Rocky, it's no idea. I mean, he pulled up with a similar one with 10 seconds to go in the game against Kilmarnock. And Stephen Welsh here to get an ankle surgery, and he's going to be out for about the same length of time. So once the players all come back, it's going to be fine. We're going to have a fantastic squad going into the second half of the season. Once we get past the winter break, it's going to be fine. We'll get a good run in. But, Stephen Welsh's operation, the day that he signed a new contract, would have been devastating enough for him, because he would have thought, with Cameron Carter-Vickers being out, I'm going to get a bit of a run in the team. The manager did say, we're losing those 3 players for that length of time, knowing the number of games that we have coming up and the importance of every game, then it's definitely something we have to look at. We will be going into the transfer market to get players for those positions. And David Kerr says a 3.5 million put in for a left winger. Yeah, the Palma guy looks no bad. We've went from a 10 million pound winger Podence down to a 3.5 million winger. He said he wanted to bring in experience. Podence is older with more experience. The young winger is only about 23-year-old. It's not what Brendan talked about today, that type of signing. So the fact that we might have put a bid in for him, there's nothing been confirmed or denied by the club. Remember, and for signing first few weeks, Kyogo off the plane, onto the bench, onto the pitch. Yes, Starfield also too. Yeah, because they were match fit. Kyogo had just played a full season, and Starfield had a full pre-season. The problem being is that if we're bringing in players that haven't trained with their first team, it's one. Oh, wait a minute. When this happens, no, it's okay. It's not the football chat. There is no signings imminent. Anyway, that would have been good if another one has happened tonight. Because remember, it has happened before on this channel. Get behind the team. What a team. Mostly injured. Oh, it's hard to be happy tonight. Come on, we've got 5 minutes going. I'm only doing a half hour. Joseph Murphy says, we'd like to know why we have so many injured players. Did any physios leave? No. Is there a problem? It's just been pure luck. Pure luck. And Baz hoping to sign the sign behind you is right and applies to Celtic injury woes. Yes, it is. Always look on the bright side of life. Wolves are playing hardball periods. Have faith it'll work out. I think they are playing hardball, but it's getting to that time where if you're wanting someone out the door, you'll make it happen. There has to still be players that will leave Celtic this week. Nicholson has got his work cut out this week. Michael Nicholson will have his work cut out. And Mark Lawwell also. Mark Lawwell, this is the week that you earn your wage for this summer. This is the week that you earn your money. The two of them. Eric Dyer popping up on Twitter about him coming. It's Twitter talk. We'll leave it to that just now. We're in a transitional period, says Graham Hardy. Have faith. We are in a transitional period. The fact that we've got the manager coming in and talking about that, the big goalkeeper, big Joe Hart, he was another one that was brought out today for the press conference. And Joe Hart says about the fact that, look, it is a new system. It's we're getting used to the new ideas again, slightly different ways of playing. And, I'd hate to see us unlucky, says love it. Change the playing style. Right, we'll talk about the playing style because everyone's blaming Brendan for the new change in the playing style. Think back to the last 5 games of the season. Think back to the last 4 games of the season. Think back to getting beat by them. Think back to dropping points left, right, and centre. And Ange showing us fringe players that he brought in, fringe players that he thought were good enough to replace players that might have been sold on this summer. And we dropped points. We dropped. Our eye was off the ball then. Our eye was definitely off the ball then. And this was at a time that he knew that he wanted to look at the Spurs job. Remember that, right? He changed our winning team with games to go, knowing fine well that he wanted to look at the Spurs job. He knew weeks before the cup final he wanted to look at the Spurs job. He told our owner and our CEO right before kickoff at Hampden that he wanted to look at the possibility of the Spurs job. So you can't blame Brendan for this whole sorry situation that we're in. And I think that people are too quick to jump on the bandwagon. Unless, of course, you're 100% hun-free. Get your merch at hoopsmerch.com. Anyway, right. Why is Brendan calling out for quality then? Yes, exactly. Why is he calling out for quality? Because he was lined up with a load of players. The only 2 quality that were brought in is probably the 2 defenders. Everyone else has been players that, let's face it, are project players. They weren't first team ready. They didn't come straight in and slip into the team. We bought a player that was injured. We brought in Marco, and we've never seen him come in. We haven't replaced with quality. And that, we all said last summer, right, before the summer kicked off. We go back to about March. We were on here, and people were saying we're only about 3 or 4 signings away, and that's just to keep the team at the level it was at and make us ready for the Champions League. That's all we're needing. Three or four quality signings. We didn't bring in 3 or 4 quality signings. We brought in a couple of guys from South Korea that are basically project players because they haven't had that experience in the Champions League. We never brought anybody in that had any experience at all in the Champions League. So it's where did we go? Who do we then blame? Do we blame the fact that these signings were already lined up and probably ticked off by Postecoglou? I would probably say so. So you need to think about why he jumped ship and why he made his mind up so soon. And let's face it, he had players coming in that weren't to the standard that was required. Anyway, Nicholson will be bald by deadline day. Well, he can come and do the channel with me then. We'll have a good talk about it. The team has dropped off then, and they'd already won the league. No, the team dropped off because Ange made so many changes. Love it. Come on, let's not lie about it. He thought that he could bring these players in and he would keep the same standard, the same level of standard going, and it backfired on him. We'd won the league, and yes, it does happen, but he brought in players to try and freshen the team up, and they weren't good enough. Just weren't good enough at all. Ange saw this coming and says, Big Dom, Red Imps was a bad start. Gordon Strachan had a bad start. Ange had a bad start. Women both had bad starts. Yes, we want a new manager now. There goes David King. Zombie. Let's just put on time. It's the last of that. Brendan, if you come back, you can have any player you want as long as it's out of them. And used a system could be relied upon to elevate an individual. So far, Brendan has relied on individuals to elevate the system. Big difference. So we'll move on for that. I'm not quite sure what to say about that because it's about changing tactics. Oh my God, Baz, I'm not a liar. Very rude indeed. I'm not saying you are. Big Don, prospect players are not quality. No, they're not. They're not. And we all wanted quality players brought in this summer. And as it stands to date, sorry, but Celtic have been sleeping at the wheel. And it was 88% or something last night. All agreed that the Celtic PLC have been sleeping at the wheel. I think you should have given John Kennedy a year with not touching the system. Only joking, Baz. I know you are, mate. Right, let's see if there's any other news about it, because that is the 30-minute mark. Brendan Rodgers addresses Kieran Tierney, says he's not going to talk about him. Brendan Rodgers has pinpointed transfer update situation, and he's not going to talk about players or certain individuals until he has them signed, sealed, and delivered through the door. So he's not even going to talk about potentials coming in, because you never know. Joe Hart says we're preparing for the game against St. Johnstone. Joe Hart says that we've been training hard all week. Joe Hart says that we have high standards. He says we have high standards and we've been having those high standards in training. It was really disappointing at the weekend. But we don't want to see just a spike this weekend. We don't want to see a spike as a result. We want to see it ongoing. So, with that being said, we are at the 33-minute mark. It is time up. We haven't got an idea of what Brendan Rodgers wants. 2 centre backs brought quick. Then we need it. It's just out there. How much clubs want to drop into the window? Yeah, it is. It all depends what. Just over 6 days to go. Closes, clubs need to move players on quick. Yeah, they do. And that's when you've maybe got a slight chance. Like Kieran's not going to drop wages to come here. So but that's one that we could kind of think that it's not going to happen. We still need a goalkeeper, left back, right back. We need a holding midfield player that's got a bit of influence, and we need the goal scorer. Simple as that. Simple as that. Celtic PLC versus Celtic CFC. Show that T-shirt and where to get one. Harry, 100% hun free. You get them at hoopsmerch.com. Before we go to that, No, it's .co.uk. There you go. There, so you can get your t-shirts there. So that is us done and dusted. You'll have your say. Always look on the bright side of life. We do, we do, we do, we do. Yes, love it. Hunt free. We are 100%, 100% hunt free on this channel. So it's been fantastic. Again, it's been some interesting talk this afternoon, all about what Brendan said and what really hasn't been said, because we're not any further forward on the type of player that we want. Brendan said we want experience. We all know that we need experienced players in, but we haven't had experienced players brought in during this window. So on that note, have a fantastic evening, Celtic fans all around the world.
Lit.